How would you feel if you woke up to find legal documents on your kitchen table, all because of one night out? What if your husband, the man you thought would always forgive you, suddenly became the one holding all the evidence? Can one night of fun really destroy a marriage, or is there always more to the story? The bass thumped through my chest as I stepped into Pulse Nightclub, the neon lights washing over my face in waves of electric blue and hot pink. At 32, I felt like I was finally breathing again after months of suffocating domesticity. My friend Jenna grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin with excitement. "Vesper, you look absolutely stunning tonight," she shouted over the music, her blonde hair catching the strobe lights. "Ethan doesn't know what he's missing, staying home with his boring spreadsheets." I smoothed down my black dress, the one I hadn't worn since before Chloe was born 7 years ago. It still fit perfectly, hugging my curves in all the right places. He wanted me home for some family movie night. I rolled my eyes. Like we don't do that every single weekend. I need this, Jenna. I need to feel alive again. The club was packed with bodies moving to the rhythm, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere other than the hospital administrator's office or the suburban kitchen where I spent most of my life. Jenna pulled me toward the bar, where a tall, dark-haired bartender was mixing drinks with practiced ease. "2 Cosmos, please," Jenna called out, leaning across the bar. The bartender, his name tag read Toby, flashed us a charming smile that made my stomach flutter in a way it hadn't in years. "Coming right up, ladies," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "First time at Pulse?" "For me, yes," I admitted, accepting the pink cocktail he slid across the bar. "I'm usually home with my family on Friday nights." "Well, you picked a great night to break tradition," Toby winked, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "The DJ's incredible tonight." My phone buzzed in my purse, a text from Ethan. "Hey babe, Chloe's asking when you'll be home. Movie starts in an hour. Love you." I stared at the message for a moment, feeling that familiar weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. But then Jenna grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the dance floor. "Come on, you can deal with real life tomorrow. Tonight is about us." The alcohol loosened my inhibitions as we danced, and I found myself laughing freely for the first time in months. Other dancers joined our circle, young professionals, couples, groups of friends all lost in the music. When Toby appeared beside me during his break, offering to buy me another drink, I didn't hesitate. "You're a natural out there," he said, his hand briefly touching my lower back as we moved to the rhythm. "Your husband's crazy for not being here with you." "He's not much of a dancer," I replied, surprised by how easily the words came. "He's more of a stay-at-home type, responsible, predictable." "Predictable can be overrated," Toby murmured, spinning me around. His hands lingered on my waist, and I didn't pull away. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan. "Vesper, everything okay? Chloe's getting sleepy but wants to wait for Mommy." I glanced at the message and felt a stab of guilt, but Jenna appeared beside me with another drink. "Don't you dare feel bad," she said, reading my expression. "You deserve this. You work your ass off at that hospital. You take care of everyone else. When do you ever do anything for yourself?" She was right. When was the last time I'd felt this free, this desirable? Ethan loved me, I knew that, but our relationship had become so routine, so predictable. We were like roommates who happened to share a bed and a child. "You're absolutely right," I said, downing the rest of my drink. "I'm networking with work friends anyway. This is practically professional development." The lie slipped out so easily that it surprised me, but it felt justified. I wasn't doing anything wrong, just dancing and having fun. Ethan would understand if he wasn't so possessive and clingy all the time. As the night wore on, I found myself dancing closer and closer to Toby. He was everything Ethan wasn't: spontaneous, exciting, dangerous. When he whispered compliments in my ear, I felt like the woman I used to be before marriage and motherhood changed everything. You're incredible, he said, his breath warm against my neck as we swayed to a slower song. I can't believe someone like you is tied down to suburban life. Sometimes I can't believe it either, I admitted, the alcohol making me more honest than I should have been. Around midnight, Jenna pulled out her phone to take pictures of our group. We need to document this amazing night, she laughed, gathering everyone together. I found myself pressed between her and Toby, his arm around my waist, both of us grinning widely at the camera. Post that to Instagram, I said impulsively. Tag me. I want to remember tonight forever. My phone had been buzzing periodically throughout the evening, but I'd been ignoring it. Now, as Jenna uploaded the photos to social media, I finally checked my messages. 3 texts from Ethan, each one more concerned than the last. Movie's over. Chloe fell asleep on the couch waiting for you. Vesper, please call me. Just want to know you're safe. Saw your Instagram post. We need to talk. The last message had been sent just 5 minutes ago. My blood ran cold as I realized he'd seen the photo. Me pressed against Toby, looking happier than I had in years, clearly not at some professional networking event. Everything okay? Toby asked, noticing my expression. Fine, I said quickly, shoving my phone back into my purse. Just my husband being paranoid as usual. But even as I said it, I knew I'd crossed a line tonight. The question was, how much trouble was I really in? I stumbled through the front door at 2:30 in the morning, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor, louder than I'd intended. The house was dark except for the porch light Ethan had left on for me. I kicked off my shoes and tiptoed toward the stairs, hoping to slip into bed without waking anyone. Vesper. His voice came from the living room, calm and quiet. I froze, my hand on the banister. Ethan, I thought you'd be asleep. I tried to keep my voice light, casual, but my heart was pounding. Hard to sleep when your wife is out until almost 3 a.m. He appeared in the doorway, still fully dressed. His brown hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it, and his usually warm eyes looked tired and distant. I told you I was networking with colleagues from the hospital, I said, moving toward the kitchen to avoid his gaze. These things run late sometimes. Networking. He followed me, and I could feel his presence behind me as I opened the refrigerator, pretending to look for something. Is that what you call dancing with random men at nightclubs now? My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to turn around and face him. What are you talking about? Ethan held up his phone, showing me the Instagram post Jenna had tagged me in. There I was, pressed between her and Toby, all of us laughing and clearly intoxicated. The timestamp showed it was taken at 11:47 p.m. This doesn't look like any hospital networking event I've ever seen, he said quietly. I felt my cheeks flush, but I pushed down the guilt and let irritation take its place. So what if I went to a club with Jenna? I'm allowed to have fun, Ethan. I'm not a prisoner in this house. No one said you were a prisoner, but you lied to me, Vesper. You told me you were networking with work friends, and instead, you were out drinking and dancing with strange men until 3 a.m. Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. I threw my hands up in exasperation. I was dancing, Ethan. Dancing. It's not a crime. And Toby isn't a strange man. He's the bartender. I was being friendly. Friendly? Ethan's jaw tightened. Is that what you call the way you're pressed against him in this photo? You're being ridiculous and paranoid. This is exactly why I didn't tell you where I was really going, because I knew you'd react like this. You can't stand the thought of me having any independence or fun without you. Even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't fair. Ethan had never been controlling or possessive, but I was cornered. An attack felt like the best defense. Vesper, I just want honesty in our marriage. Is that too much to ask? Honesty? Fine. Honestly, I'm suffocating in this suburban bubble we've created. I'm 32 years old, and I feel like I'm 80. I needed one night to feel like myself again, and I'm not going to apologize for that. Ethan stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his expression. The hurt was still there, but it was hardening into something else, something that made me uncomfortable. "Chloe waited up for you until almost 10 o'clock, he said finally. She made popcorn and picked out 3 different movies she wanted to watch with her mommy. I finally had to carry her to bed when she fell asleep on the couch. The guilt hit me like a physical blow, but I couldn't back down now. Don't you dare use our daughter to manipulate me. One night out doesn't make me a bad mother. I never said it did, but lying about where you were going and who you were with, that makes you a dishonest wife." I opened my mouth to argue, but Ethan was already walking away. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight," he said, without turning around. "We'll talk more tomorrow when we've both had some sleep." I stood alone in the kitchen, my reflection staring back at me from the dark window. For a moment, I almost called after him, almost apologized, but then I remembered how alive I'd felt at the club, how Toby had looked at me like I was beautiful and interesting and worth pursuing. Ethan used to look at me like that, but now I was just another item on his daily checklist: wife, fed, and accounted for. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and the uncomfortable realization that Ethan had already left for work. Usually, he brought me coffee in bed on Saturday mornings. Today, the house was silent except for the sound of Chloe's cartoons downstairs. I found my daughter curled up on the couch with a bowl of cereal, still in her pajamas from the night before. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head. "Did Daddy make you breakfast?" "Uh-huh. He said you were tired and needed to sleep." Chloe looked up at me with her father's serious brown eyes. "Were you sick last night, Mummy? Daddy said you couldn't come to movie night because you weren't feeling well." My heart clenched. Of course Ethan had covered for me, made excuses to protect our daughter from the truth. It's what he always did: clean up my messes, smooth over the rough edges, make everything okay. "Something like that, baby. I'm sorry I missed movie night. Maybe we can have one tonight." "Daddy already went to Grandma Irene's house. He said he'd be back later." Ethan's mother. Great. I could only imagine what he was telling her right now. Irene had never particularly liked me. She thought I was too flighty, too ambitious, too unwilling to be the perfect stay-at-home wife she'd been. This would just confirm all her worst suspicions about me. My phone rang, and I saw my mother's number on the screen. "Hi, Mom." "Vesper. Honey, I saw your Instagram photos from last night. You looked like you were having such a wonderful time. It's so good to see you getting out and socializing." Leave it to my mother to focus on the positive. "Thanks, Mom. It was fun to get out of the house for once." "Good for you. Ethan works so much, and you're always taking care of everyone else. You deserve to have some fun with your friends. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for taking care of yourself." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. I wasn't the villain in this story. I was a woman who'd been neglected and taken for granted, finally standing up for herself. "You're right, Mom. I'm not doing anything wrong by having friends and going out occasionally." "Of course you're not, sweetheart. Marriage is about partnership, not ownership. Ethan needs to understand that." After we hung up, I felt more confident in my position. I'd been honest with Ethan about needing space and independence. If he couldn't handle that, it was his problem, not mine. But when I went to check my messages, I discovered something strange. My text conversation with Toby from last night was gone, not just deleted, completely missing, like it had never existed. I scrolled through my phone, checking other apps, but everything else was normal. A chill ran down my spine. Had I deleted the messages myself in my drunken state, or had someone else been in my phone? I tried to remember what Toby and I had texted about, but the night was a blur of alcohol and music and flattery. Nothing inappropriate, I was sure of that. Just harmless flirting between new friends. But as I stared at my phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important, something that might come back to haunt me. Sunday dinner at Romano's was supposed to be a monthly tradition that brought our families together. As I sat in the restaurant's dimly lit booth, surrounded by the people who should have been my closest allies, I realized this dinner would be anything but traditional. Ethan sat across from me, his expression carefully neutral as he studied the menu he'd memorized years ago. To his left, his mother Irene picked at her salad with surgical precision, her disapproval radiating across the table like heat from a furnace. My parents flanked me, Dad trying his best to look anywhere but at the tension between Ethan and me, while Mum squeezed my hand supportively under the table. Jenna and her husband Daryl completed our uncomfortable circle. Daryl worked with Ethan at the accounting firm, which made tonight's gathering even more awkward than usual. "So, Vesper," Irene said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "Ethan tells me you had quite the adventure Friday night." I felt my shoulders tense, but I forced a smile. "I went out with Jenna for a few hours. Nothing too adventurous." "Oh, come on," Jenna laughed, clearly oblivious to the undercurrents at the table. "It was more than a few hours. We closed down Pulse. Vesper was the life of the party. You should have seen her on the dance floor." Ethan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but I caught it. Good. Maybe now he'd understand that other people found me interesting and fun, even if he'd forgotten how to. "It sounds like you had a wonderful time," Mom said warmly. "It's so important for couples to maintain their independence and individual friendships." "Absolutely," I agreed, feeling emboldened. "I think some people forget that marriage is about two whole people choosing to be together, not one person absorbing the other's identity." I looked directly at Ethan as I spoke, and saw something flicker in his eyes. Not hurt this time, but something colder. More calculating. "Of course," he said quietly, "though I think most people would agree that honesty is pretty fundamental to any healthy relationship." "What's that supposed to mean?" I snapped, louder than I'd intended. Several nearby tables glanced our way. "Nothing at all, sweetheart. Just making conversation." The way he said sweetheart, so calm, so controlled, made my skin crawl. It felt like he was patronizing me, treating me like a child who'd misbehaved. "You know what your problem is, Ethan?" I leaned forward, my voice gaining volume. "You're so insecure that you can't handle the thought of your wife having fun without you. You want me to be this perfect little housewife who never goes anywhere or does anything interesting." "Vesper," Dad said quietly, "maybe we should—" "No, Dad, I need to say this." I turned back to Ethan, who was watching me with that same unnervingly calm expression. "I'm tired of walking on eggshells around your fragile ego. I went dancing with my friend. I talked to people. I had fun. If that threatens you so much, maybe you should ask yourself why." Irene set down her fork with a sharp clink. "Young lady, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not how you speak to your husband, especially in public." "With all due respect, Irene, this is between Ethan and me." "Actually," Ethan said, his voice still maddeningly level, "I think everyone here cares about our family and wants what's best for us, including what's best for Chloe." The mention of our daughter felt like a slap. "Don't you dare question my parenting. I'm a good mother." "I never said you weren't. You didn't have to say it. It's written all over your face, and your mother's face, and probably half this restaurant by now." I gestured wildly, aware that I was making a scene but unable to stop myself. "God forbid a mother want to feel like a woman for one night. God forbid I want to remember what it's like to be desired and interesting instead of just functional." The table fell silent. Even the ambient restaurant noise seemed to fade as everyone stared at me. I realized I'd gone too far, said too much, but my pride wouldn't let me back down. "You are desired," Ethan said quietly. "By me. Every day. But apparently, that's not enough anymore." "It's not about you not being enough," I said, though even as the words left my mouth I knew they were cruel. "It's about me being more than just your wife and Chloe's mother. I'm a person, Ethan. I have needs and wants that exist outside of this family." "What kind of needs?" Irene asked sharply. Before I could answer, Daryl cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Maybe we should order dessert and change the subject." "No," I said, feeling reckless and vindicated. "I want to answer that. I need to feel attractive. I need to feel interesting. I need conversations that aren't about grocery lists and school pickup schedules. I need to dance and laugh and flirt and feel alive. The word flirt hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I saw Ethan's expression finally change, not to anger, but to something that looked almost like pity. Flirt, he repeated softly. Yes, flirt. It's harmless fun between adults. Just because I'm married doesn't mean I'm dead. Of course not, Ethan agreed, though I imagine Toby might have a different perspective on how harmless it was. My blood turned to ice. How do you know his name? Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, but instead of showing me the screen, he handed it to Daryl. Whatever Daryl saw there made his face go pale. Ethan, man, maybe this isn't the place. No, I think this is exactly the place. Ethan's voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath it now. Since Vesper wants to discuss honesty and transparency. He took the phone back and showed me the screen. It was a text message thread. My text message thread with Toby, the one that had mysteriously disappeared from my phone. Thanks for an amazing night, I read aloud, my voice barely a whisper. Can't wait to see you again. I didn't remember sending that text. I couldn't have sent that text. But there it was, time-stamped at 2:47 a.m., just after I'd gotten home. I don't remember sending that. Alcohol can affect memory, Ethan said conversationally. Though apparently not judgment. The restaurant felt like it was spinning around me. Everyone was staring. My parents, Irene, Jenna, Daryl, even strangers at nearby tables who'd been drawn by the drama. I need some air, I said, standing abruptly. Vesper, wait. Mom started to rise, but I was already pushing past the tables toward the exit. Outside, the cool evening air hit my flushed face like a slap. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call Toby and ask him what we'd talked about, what I'd said, what I'd promised. But as I scrolled through my contacts, I realized I didn't have his number. It had been deleted along with our conversation thread. The only record of our communication was apparently on Ethan's phone. How was that possible? The restaurant door opened behind me, and I expected to see my mother, or maybe Jenna, coming to comfort me. Instead, it was Daryl, looking uncomfortable and avoiding my eyes. Vesper, I think there are some things you need to know. Like what? He glanced back at the restaurant, then stepped closer to me. Like the fact that Ethan asked me to keep an eye on you Friday night. And the fact that what happened at the club, it wasn't as private as you think it was. My legs felt weak. What do you mean? I mean, my wife isn't the only one with a camera phone. And some of those pictures, they tell a different story than the one you've been telling yourself. Before I could respond, he pressed something small and rectangular into my hand. A USB drive. He wanted me to give you this after dinner. Said you'd want to see what you're really dealing with before things go any further. Then he was gone, back inside the restaurant, leaving me standing alone on the sidewalk with a piece of plastic that apparently contained the truth about Friday night. A truth I was suddenly terrified to discover. Monday morning at St. Elmo Hospital felt different the moment I walked through the automatic doors. Conversation stopped mid-sentence when I passed, and I caught fragments of whispered discussions that made my stomach churn. Saw the photos on Facebook. Can you believe she's married? Poor husband. I kept my head high and my expression neutral as I made my way to my office, but inside I was crumbling. How had this spread so quickly? The Instagram post had been harmless enough, just friends having fun at a club. But somehow, the story had grown legs and was now running through the hospital corridors like wildfire. My assistant, Rebecca, looked up from her computer with barely concealed excitement when I entered the administrative wing. Good morning, Mrs. Marwood. Dr. Patterson wants to see you in his office when you have a moment. Dr. Patterson was the chief medical officer and my direct supervisor. A meeting with him first thing Monday morning was never a good sign. Did he say what it was about? No, but... Rebecca glanced around conspiratorially, then leaned closer. There are some photos going around social media that have people talking. I thought you should know. My mouth went dry. What kind of photos? Maybe you should just talk to Dr. Patterson. The walk to his office felt like a death march. Dr. Patterson was a fair man, but he was also very concerned with the hospital's reputation. If whatever was circulating online reflected poorly on St. Elmo, I could be in serious trouble. "Come in, Vesper," he called when I knocked. "Close the door behind you." Dr. Patterson was in his 60s, with greying hair and the kind of bedside manner that made patients trust him instantly. Today, however, his usual warmth was replaced by professional concern. "I'm going to get straight to the point," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "It's come to my attention that there are some photos circulating on social media that feature you in what could be considered a compromising position." "Sir, I was just out with friends." He held up a hand to stop me. "I'm not here to judge your personal life, Vesper. What you do on your own time is your business. However, when it affects the hospital's reputation or creates a distraction in the workplace, it becomes my business." He turned his computer monitor toward me, and I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't the innocent group photo from Jenna's Instagram. This was something else entirely. A series of images that showed me and Toby in various stages of what could only be described as intimate dancing. My dress was hiked up, his hands were on my hips, and in one particularly damaging shot, we were face to face, so close it looked like we were about to kiss. "Where did these come from?" I whispered. "They were posted to a local Facebook group called Pulse Nightclub Party Pics early this morning. Someone tagged you by name, and several of our staff members have seen them." I studied the photos more closely, trying to remember when they might have been taken. The lighting was different from Jenna's group shot, and the angle suggested they'd been taken by someone else entirely, someone who'd been watching us specifically. "I don't understand. I was just dancing. This looks worse than it was." "Vesper, I need you to understand something. The hospital board takes a very dim view of anything that could be construed as adultery or inappropriate behavior by our senior staff. We serve a conservative community, and our reputation is everything." "Are you firing me?" "No, but I am issuing a formal warning. Any further incidents that bring negative attention to the hospital will result in immediate termination. I'm also requiring you to attend a professional conduct seminar next month." The meeting lasted another 10 minutes, but I barely heard the rest of it. My mind was reeling, trying to figure out how those photos had been taken and who had posted them. More importantly, how had they found their way to a public Facebook group with my name attached? When I finally made it back to my office, I found 3 missed calls from my father and a text message that made my blood run cold. It was from Toby. "Hey, your husband came by the club yesterday, asking questions. Thought you should know. Also, someone's been calling asking about you. Might want to lay low for a while." I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Ethan had gone to the club. What had he said? What had he found out? Before I could process this fully, my office phone rang. "Mrs. Marwood, this is Principal Martinez from Chloe's school. I was wondering if you could come in for a brief meeting today. It's about Chloe's behavior lately." My heart sank. Is she in trouble? Not trouble exactly, but she's been withdrawn and sad, and this morning she told her teacher that Mommy and Daddy have been fighting. We just want to make sure everything is okay at home. Everything was falling apart. My marriage, my job, and now my daughter was suffering because of my choices. I agreed to meet with the principal after work and hung up feeling like I was drowning. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispered conversations and meaningful looks. By lunchtime, it seemed like everyone in the hospital had seen the photos. Some colleagues offered sympathetic smiles, while others made it clear they disapproved. The worst part was not knowing how the images had become public or who was responsible for spreading them. Around 3 o'clock, my mother called. "Vesper, honey, I just got off the phone with your father. He's very upset about some things he's been hearing around town. What kind of things? People are talking, sweetheart, about you and some man at a nightclub. Your father's golf partners were showing him pictures on their phones. He's embarrassed and worried about you. The humiliation was complete. It wasn't enough that my co-workers and my daughter's school had heard about Friday night. Now it was spreading through my parents' social circle too. Mom, it's not what it looks like. I was just dancing. I believe you, honey, but the pictures, they don't look good. And people are saying Ethan is talking to a lawyer. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. A lawyer? That seemed extreme, even for Ethan. We'd had fights before, but this was just about one night out. One night of harmless fun that had somehow been twisted into something sordid and damaging. I picked up the phone and tried to call Ethan, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. Finally, I sent a text. We need to talk. This has gone too far. His response came back immediately. Yes, it has. We'll talk when I get home. Chloe is staying at my mother's tonight. The fact that he'd already made arrangements for our daughter told me this conversation was going to be more serious than I'd anticipated, but I still believed I could explain everything, make him understand that I hadn't done anything truly wrong. I was about to learn just how naive that belief really was. As I prepared to leave the office, Rebecca approached my desk with an envelope. This came by courier about an hour ago, she said, her eyes wide with curiosity. It's marked personal and confidential. I tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of legal letterhead from Patterson, Williams & Associates, a law firm I'd never heard of. The message was brief but chilling. Mrs. Marwood, please be advised that this firm has been retained to represent your husband in a domestic relations matter. We will be in contact with you soon regarding scheduling a meeting to discuss the terms of a potential separation agreement. Please refrain from contacting our client directly about this matter. Sincerely, James Patterson, S.Cav. I read the letter 3 times before it sank in. Ethan wasn't just angry, he was preparing to leave me. Over one night of dancing and flirting, he was ready to destroy our family. But as I sat in my empty office, staring at the legal notice that would change everything, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something I didn't know. Something that would explain how a few innocent photos had turned into grounds for separation. Something that was waiting for me on the USB drive Daryl had given me, still sitting unused in my purse. I sat in my car outside our house for 20 minutes, staring at the USB drive in my palm. The small device felt impossibly heavy, loaded with whatever truth Ethan had discovered about Friday night. Part of me wanted to throw it out the window and drive away, pretend none of this was happening, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. The house was dark except for the porch light and a single lamp glowing in the living room window. Ethan's car was in the driveway, but there was no sign of Chloe. He'd really sent our daughter to stay with his mother, which meant he was expecting this confrontation to get ugly. I unlocked the front door and found him sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and several manila folders spread out in front of him. He looked up when I entered, and I was struck by how different he seemed. Gone was the hurt, confused husband from Sunday night. This man looked like he was conducting a business meeting. "We need to talk," I said, setting my purse on the counter. "Yes, we do." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit down." I remained standing, crossing my arms defensively. "I got a letter from your lawyer today. Don't you think that's a little extreme?" "Is it?" He turned the laptop screen toward me. "Take a look at this and tell me what you think is extreme." The screen showed a Facebook page I'd never seen before, Pulse Nightclub party pics, with dozens of photos from Friday night, but these weren't the group shots I remembered. These were intimate, close-up images of me and Toby that told a story I didn't remember living. In one photo, his hand was clearly on my ass as we danced. In another, I was whispering something in his ear while his arm was wrapped around my waist. The most damaging showed us in what looked like an embrace, our bodies pressed together, my head tilted back as he leaned down toward my neck. "This isn't... I don't remember it being like this," I whispered. "Alcohol can be funny that way." Ethan's voice was clinical, detached. "It makes us forget the details of what we've done, but it doesn't change the fact that we did them. These photos are taken out of context. We were just dancing." "Were you?" He opened one of the manila folders and pulled out a printed sheet. "This is the security camera footage from the club, time-stamped and authenticated. Would you like to see what just dancing looks like from a different angle?" My legs felt weak. I sank into the chair across from him, finally understanding the scope of what I was dealing with. "How did you get security footage?" I asked for it, nicely. Turns out the club owner is very cooperative when someone explains that his establishment might have facilitated adultery. "I didn't commit adultery. I danced with someone. I may have flirted a little, but that's not adultery." Ethan opened his laptop and clicked on a video file. The black and white security footage showed the club's back hallway near the restrooms. I watched in horror as I saw myself pressed against the wall with Toby leaning over me, our faces inches apart. The timestamp showed 1:23 a.m. "What about this?" he asked quietly. "What would you call this?" I stared at the screen, trying to remember that moment, but it was gone, lost in a haze of alcohol and music and the intoxicating feeling of being desired. "I don't remember this, but you don't deny it happened." I couldn't deny what I was seeing with my own eyes. "Nothing happened, Ethan. We didn't kiss. I didn't sleep with him." "No, you didn't sleep with him that night, but you exchanged numbers. You made plans to see him again. You told him things about our marriage that you had no right to share with a stranger." He pulled out another sheet of paper, a printout of text messages between me and Toby. Messages I didn't remember sending, conversations that painted me as an unhappy wife, looking for excitement outside her marriage. "I was drunk," I said weakly. "I wasn't thinking clearly." "Being drunk doesn't excuse betrayal, Vesper. It just reveals what someone really wants to do when their inhibitions are lowered." The calm way he was presenting this evidence, like he was building a legal case, frightened me more than if he'd been screaming and throwing things. "So what now?" I asked. "You're going to divorce me over one mistake, one night when I had too much to drink and made some poor choices?" "I'm going to protect myself and our daughter from further humiliation. Do you have any idea what today was like for me? Having my co-workers show me photos of my wife grinding against another man? Having to explain to Chloe's teacher why our 7-year-old is crying at school because Mommy and Daddy are fighting?" For the first time since I'd walked in, his composure cracked slightly. I saw a flash of the pain I'd caused him, and it hit me harder than all the evidence he'd presented. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through this together." "Can we? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been planning your exit from this marriage for a while now. The complaints about being suffocated, the need for independence, the way you've been pulling away from me and Chloe for months. That's not true. Isn't it?" He opened another folder. "This is your browser history from our home computer. Dating sites, articles about reigniting passion in your marriage, searches for apartments in the city. When were you planning to tell me you were unhappy enough to be looking for a way out?" I felt like I was suffocating. Every piece of evidence, every screenshot and printout painted a picture of a woman who'd been systematically planning to cheat on her husband. The worst part was that some of it was true. I had been feeling trapped, had been fantasizing about a different life. "I was just curious," I said. "I wasn't actually planning anything." "The same way you were just dancing on Friday night?" I stood up abruptly, knocking over my chair. "Stop it. Stop treating me like I'm on trial here. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I've been unhappy. But I'm still your wife, and I'm still Chloe's mother, and I deserve some compassion here." "Compassion?" Ethan closed the laptop and looked at me directly for the first time since I'd arrived. "The same compassion you showed me when you lied about where you were going." The same compassion you showed our daughter when you chose a night of flirting with strangers over family movie night. I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't undo the damage, Vesper. Sorry doesn't make the photos disappear, or give me back my reputation, or make our daughter feel secure again. A car door slammed outside, and we both turned toward the sound. Through the window, I could see Irene's sedan in the driveway. She was walking toward the house with a determined stride that made my stomach drop. "You called your mother?" I asked. "I called my lawyer. My mother called herself when she heard about the photos circulating around town." The front door opened without a knock, and Irene entered with the confidence of someone who belonged there more than I did. "Vesper," she said coldly, not bothering with pleasantries, "I see you're finally ready to face the consequences of your actions." "This is between Ethan and me," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "Not when it affects my granddaughter. It isn't." Irene set her purse down and looked around the kitchen like she was assessing property. "Chloe is staying with me until this mess gets sorted out. She doesn't need to be exposed to any more of your drama. You can't take my daughter away from me." "I'm not taking her anywhere," Irene replied. "I'm simply providing her with a stable environment while her parents figure out their priorities." The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Ethan glanced at his watch and stood up. "That'll be the process server," he said matter-of-factly. "I wanted you to hear everything from me first, but the legal proceedings need to move forward." I felt the room spin around me. "Process server?" "Separation papers, temporary custody arrangements, and a restraining order, preventing you from accessing our joint accounts until we can sort out the finances." The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. "This is insane, Ethan. You're destroying our family over one night of poor judgment." He walked toward the front door, then paused and looked back at me. "No, Vesper. You destroyed our family. I'm just documenting the damage." As he went to answer the door, I sank back into my chair and stared at the evidence spread across our kitchen table. Photos, text messages, browser histories, security footage, a complete record of how one night of selfish choices had unraveled everything I'd thought was permanent in my life. And the worst part was, I was finally sober enough to realize that maybe, just maybe, I deserved every bit of what was coming next. The law offices of Patterson, Williams and Associates occupied the entire 15th floor of downtown's tallest building. As I sat in the waiting room with my hastily hired attorney, I felt like I was about to enter a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. My lawyer, Janet Morrison, was a sharp-faced woman in her 50s who specialized in difficult divorce cases. She'd been recommended by a colleague at the hospital and had agreed to take my case on short notice, though her expression suggested she wasn't optimistic about our chances. "Remember what we discussed," she said, reviewing her notes. "Don't volunteer information or get emotional." The receptionist called my name. Ethan sat with his attorney, James Patterson, silver-haired, expensive suit, confident smile. "Mrs. Marwood," Patterson said, "thank you for coming." Ethan barely looked at me, wearing his best suit, freshly cut hair. "My client seeks legal separation, primary custody of Chloe, and asset division per your prenuptial agreement." "Prenuptial agreement?" I looked at Janet, confused. "We didn't sign one." Patterson slid a document across. My signature sat clearly at the bottom, dated March 2019. I had no memory of signing it.